Hello students, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. Today let us understand some of the key aspects to be noted and followed while revising and attempting the paper related to accountancy in the CA foundation course. Particularly before the examination, our strategy has to be very carefully designed and the execution of that strategy has to be meticulously implemented. Then only maximum marks can be scored in this paper. Definitely this is one of the very highly scoring paper in the foundation examinations. In spite of having reasonably good knowledge of the subject, lot of students generally get the marks below their capacity. In other words, if a student is capable of obtaining 70 marks, with the lack of proper strategy, they will end up getting below 60. Same way, if another student is actually capable of obtaining 60 marks, they will end up getting around 50. Like this, the potential marks which can be actually obtained by the students is not materialized in many cases. Of course, there are always students who plan well and execute well, and definitely they get good marks also. But these lectures are about those students who might fail to achieve their potential. So the purpose of these lectures is going to be majorly enhancing the possibility of obtaining more marks than what you could have obtained without attending these lectures. So if any additional marks are scored because of these lectures, definitely the purpose is served. Before we enter into the subject aspects, first of all, we should have a broader idea about what is going to be the weightage allotted to different topics in this paper. Are we going to guess the paper here? Definitely not. Not required also. We should not do that. Or are we going to definitely say that exactly these are the number of marks allotted to each chapter? Definitely not. But yes, at a broader level, when we observe the past examination question papers, we can come to a conclusion, again, if not perfectly, almost near to accurate conclusion, that each of the topics mentioned here will approximately get the weightage attached to them. In this, the first two items, which is related to the true or false type of questions, and two theory questions, usually of 4 marks each, will be asked. They themselves will contribute 20 marks in the overall paper. Within this, 16 marks will be part of the first question, that is compulsory question. So as far as the structure of the paper is concerned, question number 1 will be a compulsory question, means there will not be any choice. That means it has to be definitely attempted. So what should we do with this question number 1? Yes, sometimes students do a mistake of starting their answers paper with question number 1. Strongly I would not recommend you to do so, because various reasons. First of all, the true or false questions require not just an answer of true or false, but also an explanation why that answer is true or false. And while explaining so, if by mistake the explanation was not really matching, and sometimes it may so happen that students might end up giving a wrong explanation. So what happens if the question number 1 itself, what you are writing as your answer number 1, itself shows your lesser understanding of the accountancy subject? Automatically the impression of the valuer will come down. That is quite natural, because valuer is also a human being. So what is the ideal thing to do as far as question number 1 is concerned? Of course, question number 1 will contain generally a 12 marks question which is related to true or false, and a theory question. Usually there's no guarantee for all these things, but mostly 4 marks theory question will be there, and another 4 marks small problem will be there, which generally you should be able to do, because these 4 marks small questions might come from topics like inventories, depreciation, or average due date account current, sale on approval or return basis. These type of topics can be tested in this 4 marks small question, but definitely this 4 marks has to be scored in this compulsory question. Out of this 12 and 4, which is 16, at least you should try for 10 minimum. In other words, you should be able to answer these true or false questions with proper logic associated with them. Okay, whatever the target marks are, whatever the actual marks that you are going to obtain, depending upon your subject knowledge and your proper framing of the sentences while explaining your answer. Definitely one thing everybody can do is, rather should do is, never try to start your answer sheet with question number 1. So question number 1 is not your answer number 1, should not be. So the first answer that you should give in the answer sheet should be your best answer. Some of you may say question number 1 is my best answer, but still I would suggest don't do that. Even though you feel that it is your best answer, most probably it will not be your best answer. So follow this instruction. Don't start your answer sheet with question number 1. Then you can start with any other question depending upon your expertise of various topics, and definitely the first question whatever you write, because each of the questions will carry 20 marks only. So question number 1 also carries 20 marks. All other questions, there are going to be 5 more questions, out of which you will write only 4. They will also carry 20 marks each. So the answer, whichever answer you choose to start with, should be such a question where you should get almost 20 out of 20. If not exactly fully 20, almost 20 out of 20. Maximum number of marks should be obtained from your first answer. Your selection has to be like that. Then naturally another thought comes, when should we do this selection? That is the reason why you are given reading time. So definitely you have to utilize the reading time very well, which is 15 minutes. So what most of the students do within these 15 minutes is they try to start solving the questions, if not on paper, at least in brain. No, don't do that. You don't have to solve the questions in brain during these 15 minutes. This 15 minutes, you have to choose mainly one thing. The major objective of these 15 minutes is your wise decision, very, very, very important decision of eliminating one question that you are not going to answer, because you have 5 questions other than question number 1. Question number 1 is separate anyway. Other than question number 1, there are 5 more questions in which, of course, you have to answer 4. So this 15 minutes is not supposed to be used just for knowing which 4 questions have to be answered. That will be automatically the resultant of the decision. If you take one small decision, though small, very important decision of eliminating one question which you are not going to write answer for. That is a very, very crucial decision, and your final score definitely depends upon this decision. You take a correct decision in this, your final score will be better. You take a wrong decision in this with all your misconceptions and wrong confidences about the chapters, then you might end up scoring less. So take your time. 15 minutes is not a small time period. Don't try to get into the subject matters. First of all, I would say don't even read question number 1. Why should you read question number 1? Don't even read question number 1. Leave it for the time being and use the reading time straight away to read the other 5 questions, and obviously all the 5 other questions will contain sub questions. Some of them may be having 10 5 5 combination, some of them may be having 10 10 combination. 10 means 10 marks, 5 marks, 5 marks, and another combination can be 10 marks, 10 marks, another combination can be 15 marks plus 5 marks. Like this, multiple combinations are possible. We don't have to guess the paper, but most of the times these are the 3 combinations that we encounter. So which questions you have to write is not a choice to be made. Which question you have to leave is a choice you have to make. And certainly I would suggest, if at all any question has to be left, it cannot be this combination question. 10 5 5 question cannot be left, because that might give you a better score. Worst case scenario, when will you leave that? Only and only if the question that you encounter in that combination is completely out of your subject knowledge, which should not be the case. But in a very exceptional case like that only, you should leave 10 5 5 combination question. So you should never leave a 10 5 5 combination question. Usually there may be 2 questions like that. Both of them you should attempt, means you should write answers for. So what are left? Only 2 different combinations are there. One is a 15 plus 5 combination. Second one is a 10 plus 10 combination. Again, maybe this will be only 1 question. Usually there will be 2 questions in this 10 plus 10 combination. Out of these 3 only, 1 you have to eliminate. Again, depends upon your subject knowledge, depends upon your practice, depends upon which topics and which chapters you can score well. It's not important which chapters you think you know well. That is not the decision making criteria. The decision making criteria should be on the basis of the question that is given in the examination, which you can score well, which is having a more possibility of a full marks scoring, or at least reasonably full marks scoring possibility. Such kind of questions you should choose, and the questions where the possibility of scoring might be little lesser, that question you have to eliminate. That should be ignored, means it should not be attempted for. Again, which one? That depends. That will be completely a personal choice that you have to make. But certainly one thing, general guideline what I can tell you is, never leave the opportunity of this type of combination questions, 10 5 5 combination questions. If you eliminate one of them, then that is a definitely dangerous choice. It will reduce the overall score. So your choice of elimination has to be only from these 3 questions. Maybe 1 question of 10 plus 10 combination, or 1 question of 15 plus 5 combination. From there only your elimination has to happen. That is one more point to be noted. And as I said already, question number 1 you should not even read during this 15 minutes time. So during this 15 minutes of reading time, finally what you should be concluding is, within the first 10 minutes you have to come to a conclusion or a decision which question you are not going to write answer for. And because the topic is there, let me tell you, some students have the habit of answering all questions from the school days, because they think whichever question gives higher marks, that will be counted for the final score, because they think the school rules apply to CA also. No sir, no madam. In chartered accountancy, even if you write any extra question, 0 marks will be added to the final score, which means you should not write any extra question. Whatever the first 5 questions you write, those only will be counted. That's all. So there is no point of writing any extra question. Even if you got 20 out of 20 in the extra question you wrote, 0 only will be added to your total score. So what is the point? So there is no need to even think about. That is absolutely stupid to think about even writing the extra question. So definitely, compulsorily, a decision has to be made which question has to be eliminated, which question should not be attempted. And this decision has to be made within first 10 minutes of the reading time. And that's a very important decision. Then the next decision is sequence. Means, what is the first question that you are going to answer? What is the second question? What is the third, fourth and fifth questions? Totally how many questions you have to answer? Of course, 5 questions. Of course, in that question number 1, I would suggest to sandwich that, which means you will write something, whichever question number that is. Just for example only, I am telling. Let us say you want to start with question number 3. Okay, start with question number 3. And another important guideline that you have to follow is question number 3 may have 2-3 sub questions. It may have A, B. Again, for example, let us say this is 10 marks question, this is 10 marks question. You have to write both one after the other. You may say question number 3 B first, A later, no problem. That's okay. A first, B later, no problem. That's okay. But you cannot write question 3A, then question 4C, then question 5A. No, this cannot happen. So all the sub questions related to the main questions have to be answered at one place. That is one more rule that you have to follow in the CA examinations. And one more rule, of course, you must be knowing already. You have to use only black ink pens. Black color pens means black ballpoint pens. Ink pens does not mean ink pens. Black pens only you have to use. Blue pens should not be used. Another thing that you can also ideally follow is don't use the ruler or scale. No. Don't use pencil ever. No need. And don't try to draw the lines with the scale and the ruler, etc. And don't use 2 color pens. Some people have this habit of using black color pen for actual answer, blue color pen for highlighting or something like that. Nothing like that. See, first of all, you have to understand no marks will be given for your designs. CA Institute is not going to give any marks for your designs, and whatever the kind of extraordinary designs you make in the examination answer sheets, they are not going to add any marks to you. That is not presentation. Presentation is different. So don't waste your time in using rulers and all for drawing lines. That is complete waste of time. If you use that time productively, you can get 3-4 marks extra. And most of the people, again, those who get lesser marks than their potential, do these mistakes. So I'm strongly recommending you not to do those mistakes. Don't do these mistakes. Don't use ruler. Don't use blue pen. Don't use pencil. These are to be avoided. So when we look at the questions sequencing, in our example, we took like question number 3, you wrote first. Maybe let us say question number 5, you will write later. Then I would suggest you go to question number 1. Like for example, only I am telling, not that exact sequence you will follow. You will follow your sequence. But one thing common for what all of you is, you will sandwich question number 1. Question number 1 is not your first answer. It should not be your last answer also. It should be somewhere in between your 4 answers. Totally you have to write 4 answers. So before question number 1, there should be 2 answers. After question number 1, there should be 2 answers. Again, for just a general example, because you have taken that, let us say question number 6 and question number 4 you are writing. That means question number 2 you left. Example I'm telling, if at all you left that. Like this, 2 questions you should answer before question number 1, 2 questions you should answer after question number 1. So this is anyway standard. So certain things you don't have to take decisions about. You should just follow. You better follow them. One thing, don't read question number 1 first of all during the reading time. Second thing, keep the question number 1's sequence always in the middle, not in the front, not in the back. So what is the big decision that you have to take about sequencing? Only these things. Which question you will write first? Which question you will write then next? Of course, after that it will be Q1. Then which question you will write after the, and which question is going to be your last answered question. And what should be the sequence about? The sequence should be definitely from your best answer to the next best answer. Of course, then question number 1 is guaranteed. Whether it is your best answer or not, I don't care. It should be in the middle. Then your next answer, next best answer, then your next best answer, or maybe the worst answer out of all what you can give. So like that, the sequencing has to be also decided within the next 5 minutes. So what happens here is, first 10 minutes, you will read the paper without question number 1 and try to understand the broader things, which topics, which chapters the questions are all from, what is the size of the questions, and a general imagination or general understanding about what could be the size of the answer. But don't try to get to the answering mode itself. Just try to imagine what could be the size of the answer, what could be the time taken that is going to be taken for these answers, which questions can be more scoring, which questions can be probably less scoring, or which questions can take more time, which questions can be answered quickly. This is the analysis that you have to do in the first 10 minutes. And what should be the conclusion out of that 10 minutes is only one conclusion. That one question that you are going to eliminate, which you are not going to write answer for. That decision you will take in the first 10 minutes by reading the question paper carefully. Except question number 1. Then next 5 minutes what you will do? Sequencing. So 2 questions, question number 1, 2 more questions. That's all. This decision you have to arrive at within this first 15 minutes of reading time. Now, once you start answering the questions, you just have to follow your strategy. Without this strategy, just like that, blindly starting with some answer and actually messing that up and overwriting on that, and sometimes it can go wrong, and sometimes we'll strike it off and we'll make a mess out of it. Obviously, naturally, that will create a very bad impression in the valuer's mind. So keep this in mind definitely. Any descriptive examination, whether it is accountancy or law and BCR as far as foundation examination is concerned, and all your examinations in future related to chartered accountancy, you have to understand the descriptive papers, wherever the valuer is a human being, you have to both impress the valuer also and express your knowledge also. So some people think that just expressing my knowledge will be enough. It may not be enough all the times. You have to try impress the valuer also. Impressing does not mean again by using these color pens or pencils or scales, rulers, etc. No, not like that. Impressing only with subject. You cannot impress the valuer with any of your other gimmicks. You can only impress the valuer with your subject knowledge. So obviously you will give your best subject knowledge in the first 2 questions. Then question number 1. Then 2 more questions, which will be also attempted, and definitely reasonable score should be obtained from them also. So what happens here is, most of the cases, if you can choose like this, by attempting the first 60 questions itself, you should be already in the safe zone of somewhere between 45 to 55, because already you have written 60 marks at least. Even keeping a very low or below average student in mind, at least 40 should be obtained from the first 3 questions itself. Such kind of questions you should select, and other 2 questions should be bonus. So the students who practiced well and who have better knowledge definitely can score very well in the last 2 questions also and get very good score. If at all by chance you are not able to do that, still you are safe, because already in the first 3 questions you secured your basic marks, which is 40. At least from the next 2 questions, even if you get 10, 15 also, it's okay. Still you will get 50, 55. For even an average student, accountancy paper minimum target should be 60. Anything less than 60 is definitely not excusable for a CA foundation accountancy paper. Certainly, the target for accountancy paper should be 60. I'm not talking about the maximum target. Maximum target is always 100. But minimum target, even for an average student, those who know basics of accounting, those who have really learned accounting, those who have practiced accounting from the ICA material and other supplementary materials, definitely should be able to obtain 60 very comfortably, provided you have a proper strategy and you implement that strategy during the examination in a proper manner. That is the very key aspect in scoring. Why a lot of people don't score is not just because they lack subject. Lot of people will score less because they don't have a strategy, because they don't have any proper plan, and because they have a lot of misconceptions, and because they continue their school practices at CA level also. These are the reasons why people don't score. It's not because that the paper is tough or it is difficult to score in this paper. Definitely not. At the maximum, there will be only one question which will be very tough. Let me repeat. At the maximum, there will be only one question which could be. Even we cannot say it will be also. A lot of papers were like that. Even that one question also was not very tough. All are simple. At the maximum, there can be only one question which could be, possibly tough. Anyway, you leave that. It's okay. So what's the big deal? You choose the other questions other than that. So all 100 marks that you write are definitely within your reach. You can score all of them. Of course, from the past experience, definitely these 20 marks, very few people will score well. Very few. But if you score well, definitely that is good. Out of these 20, even if you get 10 also, I'm okay with that. Less than 10 is a very meager performance. But at least 10 is okay. Those are true and false theory question related answers. But when it comes to the numerical questions, which are related to all these chapters, definitely you have to score more. And what should be the strategy there? Both revision as well as examination. Examination already we discussed. It is all about selecting the eliminated question or the question which is supposed to be eliminated, and second is sequencing. Once that is decided, all that you need to do is execute your strategy of selection of questions and attempt those questions in the same sequence what you planned for. But please do this planning very carefully. Don't jump to conclusions and don't do this very arbitrarily, and don't do this with your imaginations. Do it on the basis of the paper. Do it on the basis of the questions that you actually see in the paper, rather than your imagination of your comfort with a particular chapter. I am okay with rectification, so I will answer that. Not necessarily. You may have to see that generally what are there in that. So not going into the depth of the subject, but still you should have a very good decision of which questions to be actually attempted. In other words, one question which is supposed to be eliminated, that decision has to be taken very, very carefully. So if you identify out of the 5 questions other than question number 1, one question is definitely kind of little tough or very big, huge question or takes lot of time, simple, eliminate that. Don't write that question. So why to waste time on that? You better put your time very productively on those questions which you can write well and give better presentation and give better answer and maybe give more working notes. So like that you have to spend your time more productively. So what matters is whatever the number of marks that you are going to write, you should get maximum out of it. Such kind of questions only you should select, and nobody knows which question you can get the best marks out of, only you should know. So that decision you have to take in the first 15 minutes. That is about examination strategy. Now coming to the revision or subject part, chapters wise, definitely certain topics you have to score full. There is no excuse for anybody, irrespective of somebody is very good with accounting, somebody is not, somebody is very intelligent, somebody is not, somebody says I am average, somebody says I am super. All these, irrespective of any of these things, nobody needs to be a genius to be able to answer the questions from certain chapters. What are those chapters? These are all the 5 marks chapters if you observe. Inventories, depreciation, average due date account current, sale or return, approval or return basis, and bills of exchange also for that matter, consignment also for that matter. So these are very procedural type of chapters, and if you solve many questions, almost the questions, if you can solve all of the questions within the ICA material and any supplementary material that you have, then you should be able to solve these questions in the main exam also. So what should be an average student doing first of all is to make sure you have a solid base with these topics, core topics. Core in the sense, not that they are great, they are very basic topics, in the sense clerical topics, I would say. Clerical in the sense, no much of brain is required. Anybody can do that. So if anybody can do that, you can also do that. So there is no big deal in that. So how many marks are there here? 15 plus 20, almost 35 marks you should have in your pocket already. Already you should have in pocket. Means before even going to any bigger chapters, bigger practice things and all that, like partnership, not for profit, final accounts, company accounts, rectification of errors, BRS, all these things are there anyway. But before even going to them, we should be absolutely sure that we have the ability to score almost full marks in these 35 marks. And as I said, this does not require much of accounting knowledge. This does not require much of any intelligence or any genius is not required. All that which is required is practice and a basic understanding of the things related to each of these topics. More than everything else, solving many number of questions related to these topics, which is again coming to the gamut of practice only. So more practice only will give you maximum marks in these topics. That does not mean they are not conceptual. There are some concepts, definitely yes, but they are less conceptual, more procedural, more clerical, or we can say more or less the same type of questions will be there. There may not be very big variety types of questions from these topics. So simple point is, you should first of all complete your preparation and you should complete your revision related to these topics and be thorough with them. Thorough is not a small word. Students take it very lightly. Thorough means 100% thorough, which also means I am ready to take any kind of question from this topic. I am capable of answering any type of question from these topics. That's what thorough means. That level of expertise you can reach, not a big deal. These are small topics. And even if you just focus on the ICI, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, institute material problems also, more or less it will be enough. Okay, if you want any additional material, then you can also solve some of the questions which are there in the past revision test papers. There are many revision test papers which are there in the ICA website. So you can solve the questions related to these topics: inventories, depreciation, bills of exchange, consignment, average due date, account current, sale or return. These type of smaller questions, clerical, procedural questions, you better be very thorough. Which means out of this 35, even if one or two questions go for a toss, still you should be able to get 25. I am very pessimistic. Optimistic, you should get 35 out of 35. So pessimistic also, you should get at least 25 from this segment or from this portion of the examination paper. So that is must, and that has to be followed by everyone if you want to secure your score. Basically, securing is important. And anyway, we have the 20 marks already, which is related to true or false questions, which you cannot avoid, because 12 marks question comes as part of the compulsory question. So you have to be thorough, or you have to be knowing at least some of the answers for these questions, and that only happens if you have the conceptual knowledge, and nobody can define these questions. Any type of question can come. It is a test of the comprehensive knowledge of a student. That cannot be improved, that cannot be even given in few days. That is something which you should have already have. If you don't have, what are the practice that you might do from now onwards? You may have that. Even for this also, if at all you want to have a better practice of that, I would suggest you go through all the RTPs, past RTPs, revision test papers, and also the suggested answers which are there in the ICA material related to the previous examination papers. So let us say six questions are there, 5, 10 points are there. Even like that, if you go through all the RTPs and suggested answers, easily you will get at least 50 different questions, at least 40, if not 50, at least 40 different true or false type of questions you will encounter. You test yourselves, you know them or not. If you know them, also try to understand, not just by heart the answers, never by heart the answers, but try to understand why what is the logic behind the true or false. So if you go through this 40-50, then at least 3/4 will come. Then that definitely you can answer them comfortably. So like that you can have practice for these questions also separately. This will not take much time, but it will be very, very productive. So out of this theory questions, again, there is no list of theory questions and all. I don't want to give any such list. If you know the concept of many things, whatever you learned in accountancy, that you have to write. If you know it well, you write it well, you get better marks. Otherwise, most of the cases, these 8 marks are gone case. Most of the cases. I am not telling about any individual here. Even if you get 1 or 2 out of them, I am okay with that. So I will consider as good as this is gone. But out of this entire 20, even if you can get 10, that would be good. So you have already 25 from this 35, another 10 from the compulsory question, like 35 marks you have already. So where is the differentiating factor now? Differentiating factor in getting a good score, better score and super score, or even crossing the required score lies with your ability to answer the 10 marks and 15 marks questions. So which are related to BRS, that is bank reconciliation statement, rectification of errors, and final accounts, and partnership sometimes, not for profit accounts, company accounts. These are the cases, these are the areas where you will be able to get the remaining marks. So whatever the number of marks wise that you have already taken up, you should have obtained 35 already. Remaining marks, whatever extra you get, will depend upon how well you can execute the chapters like these things: BRS, rectification of errors, and partnership, final accounts, not for profit, and company accounts. Basically, the purpose of this rapid revision course is to focus on these areas. So as far as the 120 marks paper of accountancy paper is concerned, of course you have to write 100 marks only. Nobody should write 120 marks. You should not write even one question extra other than 100 marks. But if you take that 120 marks, if at all you consider the weightage of only the topics that we are going to discuss in this rapid revision, 20 marks BRS and rectification, then 30, 40, 50, 15 means we are going to discuss around chapters worth 65 marks in the upcoming classes. What about the remaining, like inventories, depreciation, bills of exchange, consignment, average due date, account current, sale of goods on approval or return basis? All these chapters, I leave it to you, because those are very basic topics and those have to be definitely done with more practice than conceptual understanding. Very little bit of conceptual understanding is required, both for inventories, depreciation, and all of them actually require some basic understanding conceptually. But more than that, what is required is practice. So you practice the questions of ICA material and the past RTPs well. In those topics, you are safe for that 35 marks. And you practice the true or false questions from the past RTPs and suggested answers also. True or false, not only for with RTPs and suggested answers also. For that practice, you will be able to, around 40 to 50 questions you will be able to know and try to understand. See, when you understand them, a similar question might come. If not same question, a similar question might come. So that will enhance your accounting understanding also. So whenever you have time, these true or false questions from the past revision test papers and the past suggested answers, which are there in the ICI material, ICI website, BOS knowledge portal, go to the foundation, go to the accounting principles and practice of accounting. There will be revision test papers, there will be suggested answers. Go through the true or false questions. In all of them, definitely that will enhance your score. Theory questions, I said, it depends upon your overall understanding. I don't think you will have to spend any time on improving that 8 marks score. or obtaining that 8 marks. So whatever you do, any other theory question can come and you might not be able to get any marks out of that. So point is, if you get any good answer, good question, if you can answer, it is luck for you. If it is not, leave it. That's okay. So effectively, in my view, you are going to write only 92 marks paper, not 100 marks. 92 marks only effectively. That 8 marks theory is completely depending upon your understanding of various terms and terminology of accounting. Again, if you know that, it's fantastic. You write it and you get some marks. If you don't know that, leave it. So mentally, you should be prepared for, basically you are writing only for 92 marks. That is a fact, whether you like it or not. In that, even for an average student, this 25 marks out of 35 from these topics should not be an issue. And if you practice well the true or false questions, another 10 marks maybe, or if not 10, at least 8 marks from that. Like that, around 30 to 35 marks. Let's be more pessimistic. 30 to 35 marks you should be able to score from these topics. So what are the remaining questions from which you can score extra? Whether it is 20, 30, 40, how much you score out of the remaining, that depends upon your practice. But we will try to maximize the score in relation to the other topics. So what are the topics that we are going to discuss in the rapid revision is the topics which are having 10 marks weightage and more. Only one topic which might have 10 marks weightage but still we are not going to discuss is consignment. Other than this, BRS, rectification of errors, final accounts and partnership accounts, not for profit and company accounts, all these topics we will discuss in the rapid revision course, and that will be helpful to you to enhance your overall score. So that is the basic introduction to the accountancy paper and your strategy. Suppose what is supposed to be your strategy related to this paper, so that you can score maximum marks according to your potential. Every student is having a different potential. Main point is, are you scoring according to your potential or are you scoring less than your potential? Main purpose of these sessions is to make sure that you score up to your potential. Whatever is your potential, at least up to that you should score. You should definitely not underperform than what you can perform. If you do overperformance, definitely that is good, depending upon the question paper, depending upon your practice and depending upon the final revision that you do. Definitely your final performance will depend on that. In spite of that, if you focus well on the strategy and follow a careful approach, a planned approach towards this paper, definitely you can score much better than what you could have scored without that strategy. That's the essence of today's session, and we'll start the subject related sessions from the next class onwards. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.